Now here's a tough question for you. If you had to buy one of these trucks, you have the choice between the brand new Chevy Silverado EV and the brand new Ford F-150 Lightning. Which one would you choose? We're going to compare the two and of course focus on the design, and then I'm going to let you know which one I would choose between these two, because I really like them both, but in two very different ways. Specifically talking about the design, which we're going to do in Photoshop, compare the front, side and the rear. But before we do that, these are after all trucks, so we need to talk a little bit about the spec and tech here, because it matters more than if we were to compare the average crossovers. So comparing the base specs first, the Silverado and the F-150 are very close in base price, with the Silverado EV Work Truck starting at $39,900 and the Ford F-150 Lightning Pro, which is their version of the Work Truck, just $74 more at $39,974. In my opinion, that's pretty reasonable for what you're getting here. However, if you want the top of the line trim, the Silverado EV RST First Edition will cost you $105,900, and the Ford is charging $90,874 specifically for the F-150 Lightning Platinum. So the price range here is pretty significant. I think that's a good thing though, because in between the, of course, the Platinum and the top RST range here and the base work trucks, we're gonna have a bunch of different varieties to choose from after these initial trim levels go on sale. What about the power and performance though? So the Silverado here is powered by two motors putting out 664 horsepower and 780 pound-feet of torque, and the Ford F-150 Lightning a little less power, 563 horsepower, that's 101 horsepower less, and 775 pound-feet of torque. So the torque is pretty much the same here, and both trucks will go from 0 to 60 in less than 4.5 seconds, a number that might seem a little irrelevant for these type of vehicles, but at the same time, I mean, who doesn't want to beat a Mustang at a red light in your 7,000 pound silent truck? Payload rating here for these two trucks is 2,000 pounds for the F-150 versus Silverado's 1,200 pounds for the work truck. Let's cover a little bit of the towing here as well. The Lightning will have 10,000 pounds of towing capacity, which is 2,000 more than the work truck's 8,000 pounds. However, if you want to match Ford's towing capacity, you're gonna have to upgrade to the RST trim, which has a 10,000 pound towing capacity. And in addition to that, Chevy's actually working on something called the max tow version of the work truck that can trailer up to 20,000 pounds, and that's of course double 10,000 and double what Ford currently has to offer. The Silverado EV Work Truck will travel an estimated 400 miles between visits to the charging station, and this of course has to be tested in real life. I don't think it's gonna have a 400-mile real world range. Hopefully, I hope these numbers are getting closer to what's actually gonna happen out in the real world when customers actually test this distance here. But 400 miles compared to the F-150's 300 miles is still 100 miles more, even though these are just estimates so far. The Chevy is also compatible with 350 kilowatt DC fast chargers, while the Ford can only use 150 kilowatts. What exactly does this mean? Well, it means that the Chevy can charge up a lot quicker and you can be on the road and get back to work a lot sooner. So those were the spec and tech. More on that on other channels. Now we're gonna jump into Photoshop and talk about this design here, because I want to show you the beautiful faces of these two designs and also the rear ends and the side view, and compare the two and let you know which one I would buy based on the design. But before we do that, I want to show you something interesting here. These are the sketches. These are the official sketches of the Ford F-150 Lightning. And I want to show you these sketches and also the Silverado sketches, because there is something really interesting here that goes on. And that is that you can see that the Ford was pretty much, it feels like it was pretty much set from the get-go. These are the wildest type of concept sketches that I could find for the F-150 Lightning. You can see that it pretty much looks like the production version. The only difference here in the rear is, as I can see, these are a little bit of a different design than the official, than the production version design of the taillights that we have down here. These are a little more sharper, narrower, and has a bit more of a conceptual feel to them, I would say. But the rest of the truck, it feels like the design was pretty much set before they even started sketching the F-150, since it's based based primarily on the 2021 Ford F-150 with the regular internal combustion engine. What they did was just make it look a little more EV-ish with the for example, this light bar right here, which is a very common feature on electric trucks these days. The Rivian, this one, and of course the Silverado has them as well. I'm sure there are others that have that. I can't think about it right now. Look at the Silverado sketches though. Look how crazy these are. These are actually official sketches from GM, and these are some initial concepts for what the Chevy Silverado could have looked like. These are proposals, and as you can see, they're super wild. So the management probably sat back and had a look at this and say, we can't really go, these are cool sketches, but we can't really go that crazy just yet. Maybe in 10-15 years we're gonna see something like this up here, which I love. I think it looks super cool. And this had me thinking, if I were on the design team of either of these two companies here, Chevy or Ford, which would you like to be a part of the creative process here? For me, it's pretty obvious. Looking at the sketches of the Ford, very constrained already. The Ford F-150 2021 model was already designed, so you have to base your ideas on that. But on the Silverado side, on the Chevy design department, they just went totally nuts over there and had a lot of fun creating these designs. So definitely I'm on team Chevy when it comes to the creative process of these two trucks here, for sure. I really love this design. I think this looks really cool and futuristic. I do understand that they can't put this in production yet. It's a little over the top and you need to transition smoother than that, specifically for the truck category, which is such a hammered in category, and people, I don't think they want to have something like this crazy just yet. I guess we're gonna find out when the Cybertruck comes out, which also has a light bar in the front end, by the way. All right, now let's compare the actual production designs here of the Ford F-150 right here at the top. Then you can see we have the Silverado down there at the bottom. So looking at it from a straight view like this, straight front view like this, I kind of prefer the organization or the cleanliness, the clean lines of the Ford F-150 up here. You can see that it's framed really beautifully with this light bar that goes on the side here. You kind of have the same trend that we have in a lot of different cars these days, including the Silverado, which I'm gonna show you just a second here. And we have the headlights being almost centered in the middle. And then we have a grille as well that looks almost like an internal combustion grill. Ford really don't want to step too far away from the internal combustion feel and design for the EV, which is totally understandable. The Ford F-150, the best-selling truck for I don't know how many years in a row or decades in a row. They sell one of these, I can't remember if it was like every second or something like that, every other second. They sell F-150s like crazy, so they want to kind of not be too crazy and ruin something that's already works just because it's an EV. So these are two very different approaches to how to launch your first fully electric truck. And I think it's really interesting because there is still two big American companies, Chevy and Ford, but they still decided to go very, very different directions and philosophies when it comes to releasing the first fully electric truck. You can see that the bumpers here still look like pretty much the Ford F-150. The only difference here that gives this away as an EV is of course the grille. We don't have openings right here, and you have this light bar in stretching from one corner to the other, emphasizing the width, and it looks really cool. It looks really clean and organized. Compare that to the Chevy Silverado, and this just goes to show here as well in the production version just how fun Chevy designers had with this design. I bet you it was a really fun project from the start to the finish to work on this as any sort of creative person, engineer or designer or what have you within the team here, because you can see that it went really crazy with the styling and had a lot of fun, but you still have a clear Chevy brand identity. I like that the Chevy bow tie there in the middle lights up. It's a little detail that's gonna definitely hammer in the night identity of the front face of the Chevy. But as you can see, the headlights here, they sit in the same position as the Ford, so kind of in the middle section of the front end, but still they're designed and stylized in a very, very different way from the Ford. Very stylized right here, different corners and angles and curvatures on this, while the Ford is just a simple rectangle up there. All a matter of taste, which one you prefer. But if I were to pick one just looking at it like this from a straight front view, I'm gonna have to go with Ford. But overall, that might not be the one I would want to buy in the end. More on that, of course, at the end of this video. Now let's have a look at the rear view. I do like the Ford here. I like that they have this chiseled look in the rear end. It looks a little more stylized than we have in the front end, and I love this chamfer that wraps around the graphics of the rear end here, and also of course stamped F-150 in the tailgate right there. And we have the same type of light bar that now stretches into the actual tailgate, and that's unusual. I don't think I've seen a light bar on a truck in the moving part of the tailgate that connects to the graphics of the tail lights, and I do really like these tail lights as well. They look really cool. A thick, very thick LED in here, and I love these thick LEDs that Ford are using at the, currently. They also have these very thick LEDs in the side of the Expedition. I just want to go and grab it when I see it lit up. It's just a beautiful design. But still, what's really interesting here is look at this bumper. This bumper is just a standard truck bumper that most companies outsource the bumpers and just slap them on from a third-party company. That's exactly what happened here. This is one of these third-party company bumpers that they still use on their most futuristic design of the Ford F-150, the Lightning right here. It's a good looking truck. It really looks like any other Ford F-150 except for the light bar here in the middle. It's a good approach. I think they're gonna sell really well with this approach, but I also think Chevy is gonna sell really well with this approach right here, which is the most futuristic approach. And looking at the taillights here, a lot more stylized and a lot more dynamic than the regular Silverado. It looks a lot more in line with the overall body lines in the car, and it feels like it's actually supposed to be there. I don't feel like the taillight on the regular Silverado really suits the rear end. It feels like it's just a piece that's been added on and doesn't connect well with the rest of the body lines. But here, totally different story, and you can see that the bumper here seems to be not a third-party bumper, but this is actually part of the design and designed in-house like the new Tundra did as well. So the Tundra experimented with this as well. You can look at the rear bumper of the Tundra, and you can see that it's integrated in the body. It's not one of these third-party bumpers like we have up here. It's actually integrated in the overall design and designed in-house. But looking at the tail ends here, I actually prefer the Silverado when we look at the tail end. I think it has a cool design and it looks a lot more futuristic, and it's so much better looking than the internal combustion Silverado. Last but not least, the most important view is the side view right here. So let's have a look at this and the lines here. This on top, of course, the Ford F-150. Specifically, when we can't see the light bar in the front and in the rear, it pretty much looks like any other Ford F-150. You can see here that we have these thick LEDs, very, very thick and very, very nice looking. You just want to go and grab it and just grab a bite of it. It looks so tasty. Same thing with the front end right here. And I love the lines of the Ford F-150. What's really separating these two is here you can clearly see the approach from both these companies. You have this body on frame structure here, so you have the bed being separated by this line right here from the rest of the cabin and the hood up here, which is a traditional, typical truck way of building trucks, when you have the bed on the frame and then you have the other sections right here mounted onto this frame under here. There's not a lot of changes here from the regular F-150. However, looking at the Silverado down here, you can see this is the avalanche approach, where you don't have the section line between the bed and the overall cabin, but you still have up to, I think this could go up to 11 feet in here, the entire bed, if you have an opening right here in the back, so you can have this bed be a total of 11 feet. I think this, I'm not sure the length of the Ford F-150, but it's a lot less than that, and I think it looks cool. It looks very futuristic. I'm a fan of the Avalanche original design with this little rake here, and it looks futuristic. I know a lot of truck people don't like this approach. They think it looks too much like a crossover or like an SUV and not enough truck design in this approach, and I can definitely understand what they're saying there. If you want a proper looking truck to be an EV, right now the only option that you have is the Ford F-150 Lightning. So I feel like it's two camps here. Are you one of these people that are conservative when it comes to the looks of the trucks? You don't want your truck to shout about being an EV just because it's an EV. You still want to have it be looking like a normal looking truck, even though it is electric. Or are you in the other camp, the Chevy camp, where you really want to shout about your EV truck and make people know that it's a different different type of truck with this futuristic approach to the design. I'm not sure which one I am. I like the Ford F-150 design, but I think I really appreciate Chevy's approach here and to try to make something new, something different. So if I were to buy one of these trucks, I think I'm leaning more towards screaming about having an EV truck, and that would mean choosing the Chevy Silverado.